Hey everyone, it's Sean Carroll from Sean Carroll's Education Solutions. Today we will be looking at Microsoft Entra. Microsoft Entra is Microsoft's identity and access management solution. It is very powerful and integrates with Azure heavily. I believe in order to know the foundations for anything, or the foundations are the best way to start. So what I'll do is cover off the foundations here today. Once we have those covered, we'll jump into some more advanced topics like application proxies, performing privileged identity management, adding custom domain names, Microsoft Entra Connect, security settings, and much more of the advanced features. Now, Entra in itself is a huge project. Microsoft is a huge product. Microsoft has its own certification for it. I believe it's the SC300 exam if you're interested. And that does validate your knowledge and enter at a very in-depth level. So without further ado here, let's take a look at the overview tab. So going across the top here, we click the add button. It gives us a shortcut to add a new user. So we have two options here. One is to create a new user, which will create a new internal user. The other is to invite an external user. And you have to think of times where you would actually use that. And times where you would actually use that would be a time like where you're collaborating with a vendor on a project and you want to give them some level of access to your Entra environment so that they can collaborate with you. They are called B2B or B2C accounts. And they're managed a bit differently and identified a bit differently in Entra ID. By clicking on this, we can create a group. We'll go through groups here in a bit, so we won't go through that right now. And then an enterprise application, which is an enterprise application that we would register within Entra, which is something that we don't want to do today. And then app registration, which is to register an app within Entra. And we don't want to do that today either. I'll cover that in a future lesson. Manage tenants. This is just if you have multiple Microsoft Entra tenants. A good example of this would be where one company acquired another, and you would have access to the other company's Microsoft Entra tenant as well as your own Microsoft Office Entra tenant for your company. Yeah, so preview features, those are just features that are in beta. I typically don't recommend playing around with them too much in a production environment. And then if we look down here, we have a bit more basic information. So we have the name, Rebound Computer Solutions. We have the tenant ID, which is what it's referred to in the back end, which is also very helpful to know. In any of the JSON for this, you will see the tenant ID. The primary domain is Rebound CS. It's one that I have verified and attached to Entra. We have Microsoft Entra ID free. There are P1 and P2 licenses. As you upgrade to a P1 or a P2 license, you do get additional enhanced security and identity workflow features. So there are alerts here. And the number of users, groups, applications, and devices. And there is actually new Entra Admin Center here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to that. And you can get there by going to entra.microsoft.com. This just aligns with more of Microsoft's current user interface for their admin panels. So if we go under overview here, we see the exact same options. We can scroll down and see that Microsoft Entra Connect is enabled. Identity protection, that's fairly helpful when we get into more of the cybersecurity work. We'll be viewing risky users, risky workload identities, and risky sign-ins, and making sure that they're actually safe. You can build a consumer app. You can perform access reviews, which means reviewing access at predetermined intervals to make sure that the accounts only have the access or rules that they need in order to do their job. Authentication methods, Microsoft Entra domain services. So that's for lift and shifting legacy applications running on premise into Azure, and then tenant restrictions. You can specify the list of tenants that their users are permitted to access. So here we have the add user button, we have add group, add enterprise application, and add application registration. But I think it's best if we just go into the groups menu here and take a look. And we are going to have some features which are enabled for us in here and some which aren't. The first thing I'm going to do so that's grayed out for some reason, but we could walk through create a new user if we had it, but that's fine. The audit log, I believe, won't show. Sign-in logs won't. So let's just take a look at the user account. All right, so if we look at a user account, we have quite a few properties here. So we have an overview of the account. It's shown at reboundcs.com. I only have member permissions. I need global admin permissions so I can access some other features like audit logs and sign-in logs, but we can also cover those when we get into more of the cybersecurity content. This is the object ID created with my account. This is what would be referenced on the back end. This account was created May 9th, 2025. It's a member. We can see it's enabled. And then if we want to convert the account to an external user, we can absolutely do that from there as well. So audit logs, I won't have access to. Let's see sign-in logs. Oh, interesting. So my sign-in logs we actually do have access to. And these can be quite useful for tracking down instances where a user has logged in from a location that you're unaware of. So interactive sign-ins are where they've directly signed into the web interface. Non-interactive sign-ins, for example, where I'm logged in and Microsoft 365 Security runs a scan. Yeah, see Windows Defender, Advanced Threat Protection, Threat Intelligence Portal. Yeah, these are things that I was looking at earlier that would have been a non-interactive sign-in. These are actual sign-ins I did. So we can see I accessed the Azure portal this morning at 9:38. It was a success. So we can look at every detail associated with a sign-in. So the date, Microsoft has a request ID for us. There's a correlation ID to correlate the sign-in. The authentication requirement was multi-factor. Multi-factor authentication should be turned on for all of your Entra accounts. It was a not agentic sign-in. It was successful. Continuous access evaluation. Continuous access evaluation is a feature that Microsoft has where it consistently evaluates your user account while you're using it to ensure that there are no security violations. We don't have that turned on here, but it is recommended, and some of these are best practice material to turn on continuous access evaluation. So MFA requirement satisfied by claiming the token. I set my time for a longer cookie. So I satisfied MFA on Saturday, I think, and it probably won't reset for a week. So yeah, we can see some other information here, the user ID, session ID, app owner, tenant ID. I mean, this information's useful, but probably not unless you're troubleshooting an issue. And then you can see here I signed in with, yeah, I signed it in with Edge from my desktop computer. Okay, and I can just close out of that. I'll be honest, diagnose and solve problems. I don't have single sign-on set up here. I find a lot of Microsoft troubleshooters don't actually work that well, so I tend not to use them. These are custom security attributes, so once again, like in Active Directory, which has hundreds to thousands of custom attributes that you can set, you can set them here in Entra as well. So this is where you would assign roles. Least privileged role-based access control is recommended in Entra. I'll cover this in a future video, but I would literally just choose add assignment, choose role to add to you, and that would be it. Administrative units. So administrative units are going to be outside the scope of what I talk about today, but administrative units can be very useful for delegating administrative tasks to a subset of users, groups, or devices. So, for example, this could be used, you could put every user and device from here in an IT department administrative unit, and it would just make it more, it would make the administration easier and less costly from an IT perspective. So I'll show what groups I'm in. I'm just in Rebound Computer Solutions group. This is the object ID for the group. Once again, important if you're troubleshooting a cyber attack. Group type is Microsoft 365. The other type is going to be a security group. Membership type is assigned. That can also be dynamic. Oh, I didn't mean to hit that there. Just give me a second. Yeah, it shows the email and then the source is cloud. If it was synced from an on-premise Active Directory, it would say, I believe, on-premise. Applications, this is just if I was registered for an application in Entra. Once again, we'll cover that in the future. license this. So I just have a Microsoft 365 Business Basic license. What ultimately I want is Microsoft 365 E5 license. That'll give me all the features that I want in here. Devices. This would show any devices that are registered to me. So if I had a computer joined in Entra, for example, it would show up in here. Azure itself has its own role assignments. So you can see that I'm the owner of 2 Azure subscriptions. So I can go ahead and perform any tasks with the owner right that I require access to within those subscriptions. Authentication methods. I'm already registered for multi-factor authentication here, but this is where you can assign multi-factor authentication for users. You can change their default sign-in method, or if their MFA for some reason needs to be reset, you can choose require re-register multi-factor authentication. So we'll go on to groups now. So on the groups page, we have an overview of all groups. In our tenant, it's not too exciting. We have 2 total groups, which are both cloud groups. We have a few options here to make a new group. Download groups, which would just download them all, I believe, in a CSV file, if I'm not mistaken. Preview features, which would just be beta features, which we probably wouldn't be too interested in. This will show us a list of all groups. We only have 2 in here right now. Any groups you delete will stay in here for 30 days. After that, they're permanently deleted. So that's always good to keep in mind. Once they're permanently deleted, they're not that easy to get back. The troubleshooters, I don't find they work too much, but that's just my own opinion. In here, you have general settings for groups. So self-service group membership. If someone's the owner of a group, they can manage group membership by requests in my groups. That's had to know. That's best practice for security. Restrict user ability to access group features and my groups. Group and user admin staff will have read-only access. That being set to no is fine. And then security groups. Users can create security groups in Azure portals, API or PowerShell. Yes, we will show you how to create users via the Azure command line in PowerShell. Microsoft 365 groups. Users can create Microsoft 365 groups in Azure portals, API or PowerShell. And we want to leave that set to yes, just for flexibility of creating accounts. Like I prefer for PowerShell myself. And then for privileged identity management, we need a P2 license for Microsoft Entra. It's the same for access reviews. Let me just see here. Yeah, we have an error. So we'll cover that once I get a P2 license. So if we go back here, if we click on an existing group, we can see the properties of the group. So Rebound Computer Solutions, enter a description for this group. There's no description. It's Microsoft 365. We can see that it's assigned and the object ID. And the main things we're just going to concern ourselves with right now are members. So to add a new member to the group, you would just click Add Member. Yeah, I think these are the only 2 users I have in the tenant. But yeah, basically you would select the users you want to add to your group. I can show you here by creating a new group as well. I'll do that in just a second. I'll show you how to create a new group. So it shows us the members, the group owner is going to be another account that I have in this tenant that actually is the global admin. Any roles and administrators that the group's in, any administrative units, any group memberships that the group is a member of, applications, and Azure role assignments. So we'll just go back to the groups page here. We'll choose to add a new group. We'll choose a security type for the group. Microsoft 365 groups are basically groups that you use for Microsoft 365 functions, and they have a lot more collaboration settings and other things. But for this use case here, we'll just call it Joe and Carol. Entra security group. Okay, so we entered the group name, group description. It automatically set the membership type to assigned. I believe dynamic is only available with Microsoft 365 groups. So just to add someone to a group or add an owner, I'm going to select this account. And then it's going to show me security, the group name, test group, membership type, owner name, and we can add a member here. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. These are Azure accounts, Azure enterprise applications that are registered in Entra. So Azure Resource Graph, Azure Resource Manager, Azure Storage. What we will do is find, we can probably just add that to be honest. Yeah. So if we go to all groups here, yeah, that shows up here now as a group. We can go into members. We can remove this member from the group by going up here and choosing remove. Remove this selected member, yes. So it confirms up here that they've been removed. And that is all that we are going to cover in Entra for right now. I'll have a more advanced video out in the next day or two where we cover devices, enterprise apps, audit logs, privileged identity management, account reviews, least privileged role-based access control. We'll cover identity secure score, multi-factor authentication, password reset. Entra is really a huge product, so it's going to take us probably about 7 or 8 hours of videos to cover everything in depth. But if you stick with me, I'll show you all the advanced features through the GUI and then how to work with them through PowerShell and the Azure cloud as well. If you do have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn or send me a message at SEAN @rebound, so REBOUND, C as in Charlie, S as in Sierra.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.